Welcome to Roar Healing Stories. I'm your host, Ellen Line. Before we dive in, I have a few announcements and a heads up about today's episode. I'm going to be presenting 2 workshops at Anahata's Purpose. Anahata's Purpose is a really cool festival and wellness retreat. It's got some witchy vibes, but it's also got grown-up summer camp vibes. There's great music and great people there. It's super affordable. Tickets are still on sale. It's not too late to get yours. There are options for camping and cabins. You can kind of craft your experience however you would like it to be. It's going to be in Darlington, Maryland, October 16th through 19th. And if you are a fan of this podcast, I think you'd be a fan of Anahata's Purpose, and I'd love to meet you there. I'll share the link to where you can get more information in the show notes. The conversation that you're going to hear today is just the first part of this conversation. And I'm going to be publishing part 2, where Logan talks about some of the DIY inner family systems and inner child healing work that he's been doing. I think this is an amazing conversation, and I'm so glad that Logan was willing to share about his journey with me. I'm really excited for you to hear it too, and to hear what you think about Logan's journey. And with that, let's dive in. Welcome, everybody. Today, my guest is Logan Williams, and Logan is a dear friend. We've been friends for, I think it's been over a decade now.
Over a decade. Easy.
Over a decade, which is wild to me. We met when I moved to Texas through like a very weird, convoluted network of mutual friends and mutual friends. At one point we were roommates and just have a long and lovely history of friendship. Logan is one of the best people I know. And so I'm so excited to share Logan's beautiful brain with y'all today. I might edit some of this out because it's getting...
Keep it all gold. Raw gold.
Logan, tell us about yourself.
Hey, everybody. I am Logan. I am a writer and improvisational comedian, an improvisational song singer, a karaoke diva. And there's some stuff that I do that I make money for as well, which is not related to my interests.
Yeah, that stuff's usually pretty boring.
Right? Who cares?
Tell us about your healing journey.
My healing journey. Well, it's maybe not what you mean, but I was just thinking, does the healing journey begin with the wounds that you take requiring healing? Because I certainly did not take an active role in my healing until probably I was just trying to find the exact dates that I signed up for my first therapist ever. But it was honestly after I met you, I believe, in 2012, 2013.
Wow.
Obviously, things had not been great before that for some time to drive me to a therapist at a time that I really didn't know what that was all about. It was okay to go to one. I think that was a thing at the time. When I grew up, obviously people were already going to therapists. That wasn't new or anything, but culturally, I think it was less talked about, less well understood.
Yeah.
Going to school, we didn't have so much someone screening us for ADHD or depression or any of that. We had the gifted and talented program instead to further segregate people with deep interior lives and a fear of others away from their peers.
Oh my goodness, I've never heard it described like that, but you're so right.
Right, let's take all the kids who would rather read a book than kick a ball and take them away from the people who could teach them the value of sports or hanging out with other humans at all that are still alive and not 100 years old dead. philosophers or writers or whatever, uh, and just put them all in a room together and then make them do math, the thing that they're clearly so good at.
Oh my goodness, you're so right.
So that's one element that needed healing, I think. Any number of small things. I count myself very fortunate not to have what I would call a big capital T trauma, anything huge like that in my life. I'm super grateful for that. I don't know exactly what the healing journey is like for people that have something like that as an initial sort of roadblock. But I imagine it's harder. In some ways, I imagine it could be more focused, but also, obviously, I wouldn't wish that on anyone.
Yeah.
But as my current therapist was very helpful in pointing out, we all have plenty of little t traumas. I resisted, this was pretty recently. She's a new therapist of mine, and we're still getting to know each other.
Yeah.
But she mentioned that, and I had to think about it for a bit. It's like, oh, well, yeah, sure. Lots of little things, I suppose. Being teased for weight or for long hair, which I was into as a kid. Any number of small cruelties that kids can heap on another or adults can on kids. And just the absence of what would probably be considered exceptional care. For my own parents, like I can think of things that they could have done better. They didn't necessarily do anything wrong, but there were just things that were addressed in a way that made me assume certain things were the right way to act, and those didn't serve me later in life. It doesn't sound like that big a deal, and it's not necessarily, as long as you have the tools to readdress them when you get older. And I really had to go after those myself.
Yeah.
So in that way, I guess I hope that my journey is pretty transferable, since there is not some big unique thing behind it. I think it's the wound of a generation in a lot of ways. So many of my friends have very similar experiences growing up. And tons of the people I know personally have ADHD and depression in different quantities. That's if it's important. I don't know how important I think it is, but that's sort of what I'm being treated for. It's ADHD, depression, anxiety, increasingly is something I didn't really know that I had. It's interesting because it manifests so strangely with ADHD. Kind of one of my big coping mechanisms for ADHD before anything more focused was just knuckling down and getting real excited about something, either that I was pumped for it or it's terrified of getting it wrong, and using pure adrenaline as my dopamine replacement or booster or whatever. And then I did that for 4 years, and then I didn't finish college.
Yeah.
So that's the thing that can happen.
Yeah.
So I finally did start seeing a therapist in, like I said, about 2012, 2013, somewhere in there. Um, let's see. I want to go back a little bit because one great question you sent me before this was like what are maybe a dark or the darkest moment in your healing journey. And this is a testament, I think, to the skill and the care of the therapists I've worked with. By far my darkest moment, right before I started going to therapy, and nothing has measured up since then.
Wow.
This was when I first moved to Austin. I moved with one of my best friends to move in with another of my best friends, who you know well.
Yeah.
But before we all moved in together, there was a period of maybe like a couple of months, maybe just a month, where the two of us that were moving stayed together in a sublet with almost no furniture. Like we weren't going to stay there very long, so we didn't make it too fancy. And
Yeah.
most of the stuff was in storage, so that we didn't have to move twice in a month.
Yeah.
Makes perfect sense. He was moving here for a very specific and very good job. Uh,
Mm.
I was moving here to be with friends, to experience a new city.
Yeah.
Uh, and I thought I had a job lined up when I moved, but by the time I arrived, I did not.
Oh.
Um, Nor did I have much in the way of savings or anything like that. So
Yeah.
all of a sudden, that was my job, was finding a job.
Mhm.
Uh, this is not the only time this has been the case in my life, but it was the most stressful because I was in a new city, had no safety net. People were depending on me to be a person paying rent
Yeah.
in a new place.
Yeah.
Um, I just uprooted a bunch of stuff, which
Mhm.
came with baggage that I wouldn't unpack for years yet.
Mhm.
Um, about whether I had like failed at being the best version of myself in that old place.
Mhm.
Denton, Texas, where I went to college. I
Mhm.
finished college, so that's a thing that was weighing on me as well.
Mhm.
But mostly it was the job search, and to this day I have a lot of anxiety about a job search
Mhm.
because I mean I think everyone can relate to it being a pain, putting
Yeah.
so much of your own effort into a bucket with an absolute hole in the bottom. You'll talk to so many people before you get a job, and I feel like it's getting worse every year that
Yeah.
I'm adults.
Yeah.
But at this time, it was especially something that I didn't have a lot of experience with, and
Mm.
of course, again, I didn't have any real kind of support structure there.
Mhm.
My friends, my roommate were very supportive and non-judgmental, and that was really important. But
Yeah.
also, they had jobs, so they weren't around to offer help or even like moral support while it was going on.
Mm.
And not that that was their job or anything, but I felt very isolated,
Yeah.
felt very desperate. Um, and there's a weird sort of giving up that can happen
Mm.
when you're desperate for a little too long than your body can put up with.
Mm.
Where it's just like, well, desperation didn't work. Let's
Mm.
go into, it's like running from a tiger. Your
Mm.
instinct is to sprint, and
Mhm.
if you run out of sprint juice, then your only real option is to curl up into a ball, use as little energy as possible, and either it'll move on by you or you'll have conserved the rest of it to fight your last fight.
Wow.
And so that's where I ended up in
Mm.
the position,
Mm.
literally some of the time.
Mm.
Just every minute of just being online looking for jobs felt like running a mile, just
Mm.
sapping my not just my mind but my actual physical muscles
Mhm.
in a way that certainly I've experienced since in small doses, but I mean it felt like I had the flu,
Oh,
you know.
yeah.
um So that there's not really a lesson there.
Mm.
There's that happened. I finally did get myself a job, a temp job that didn't last all that long, but it gave me a safety net to stay on for long enough to start feeling a little bit safe again.
Mm. Yeah.
Um, and that was the beginning of an upward spiral, uh,
Mm.
at least a bit. I
Yeah.
was thinking that when people talk about like the things that you went through that like made you stronger kind of thing.
Mm.
That didn't make me any stronger.
Yeah.
I really don't think so. I think that that was a hard thing that I endured. It didn't
Mhm.
make me strong. The strength that I had let me endure it. And maybe if I need to give it credit for something, I'll say it made me more familiar with my strength in that way.
Mm.
But something like that, it doesn't make you better.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. Yeah. I think there's like, oh, sorry.
Go ahead.
I think there's like a tendency or a desire to like make meaning or to find silver linings in the hard things we go through. And I think like to varying degrees, people like fall into that sort of tendency. But I'm with you. Sometimes shitty things happen and it's just like, well, that was shitty.
Yeah, I mean, certainly it's important to find the good around you during hard
Mhm.
times. I don't think you need to find the good in the things that are happening to you because that's just not. It's not a good thing. You shouldn't.
Mhm.
I don't think adapt yourself into expecting it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, so that was a particularly nasty time, and
Yeah.
once I had a job and we moved into the permanent place and
Mhm.
felt a little more stable. I started looking up therapists,
Mhm.
which I say very casually now. It was kind of a big shift for me to be like, you know what, I can't do it myself.
Mm.
Um, and at the time, I just didn't have the language for that being okay.
Wow.
It's not like I thought of it as hugely shameful, but I guess I just didn't think of myself as meeting the qualifications.
Mm.
It wasn't bad enough. Uh,
Mm.
uh, I guess that's another thing I'll put in the positive column of that really depressed time if I really have to. That it did convince me that I was depressed enough to seek help. um,
Yeah.
so if you're listening, you are depressed enough to seek help right now. Whatever's going on in your life, you can be fine and seek help. I'll tell anybody that, like, if you want just some tools to manage your life better, go to therapy. You don't even have to be
Yeah.
healing anything in particular that you know of. Just go. Just
Just
go now.
go. Just go.
Especially if you have health insurance. Just
Just
fucking go.
go.
That's
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah, I think that is I think kind of like you said, how you were saying, like, my parents didn't really do anything wrong, but there were things they could have done better. And that's like super relatable. I think also this idea of like, well, I'm not really bad off enough, right? Or like, I'm not hurting enough. I'm not sick enough to like really need therapy. Or like, if I go to therapy, it means like I must be really in a bad way, right? Like, I think that is also so very, very typical for, a bajillion reasons, but
Yeah. And
yeah.
I think uh I don't know. Maybe you know better than I do
Mm,
if that has, from my perspective, I feel like that's been shifting over the years to
yeah.
where therapy as an option has a much lower bar socially, like less expectation that going to therapy means there's something wrong with you.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, that's great. I'm glad to know that.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that was when I did finally start going to therapy.
Mhm.
Um, none too soon. Uh,
Mhm.
my first therapist, an absolutely awesome lady.
Mm.
She was cool, lesbian motorcycle riding mom, just the biggest badass in the clinic.
Mhm.
And also like a 5-minute walk from my apartment at the time as well. It was kind of amazing and perfect.
Yeah.
Of the therapists and the medication and stuff that I've had, you
Mhm.
know, tracking who's responsible for how much of my sort of recovery. If I'm properly giving myself half the credit, then I put her at like 35% of the rest of the credits, including medication, honestly.
Wow.
Like the degree to which she helped me from a place of I have no idea what's going on in my head to
Mm.
I need some help managing what's going on in my head.
Mm. Mm.
We really stuck mostly with pretty straightforward sort of talk therapy.
Mhm.
It just wasn't time for anything more complicated for me. I just needed somebody to explain that feelings were a thing you could control, and that emotions were supposed to be variable and not always at the bottom of the gauge and stuff like that.
Mm,
You
yeah.
know, I needed to become aware was not the only way to be.
Mm,
Um,
yeah.
you know, she did that in a way that uh, like even while I was experiencing it, it felt so obvious that I was also sort of embarrassed for
Mm,
being so in my own head about it. And she was great about making it feel empowering to find the stuff out instead of embarrassed.
yeah. Oh,
Really important.
yeah. I love that.
She would, you know, say stuff like, "All right, now you have that in your toolbox. Like now you know that. Like that's really you. This will it'll aid you in this way down the line."
Mm,
Um, you know, as a writer, as a creative, I thinking in metaphors helps me a lot.
yeah.
And one of the big ones that came up with her, working with her, was this metaphor of a cage.
Mm,
Um, in that these thought patterns that I thought were negative and didn't believe in, even,
mm,
you know, you can be intellectually aware that the things you're depressed about aren't as severe as they feel, but it doesn't help necessarily to know that. Uh,
mhm.
so that felt very much like a cage. And working with her, I started to see the metaphor of like I was building the cage myself,
Wow.
something that I had dropped into or that someone else had built. It was something that, you know, for various reasons, most of them seeming like good ideas at the time, I built around myself.
Mm,
Um, and that was helpful just to know of it that way. But also, what I found incredibly empowering is the idea that, like, I built it around myself. All the tools are inside. I've
mm,
got them still. And it's easier
mhm.
to tear something down than it is to build it up.
Wow.
And that gave me a lot of confidence to say I can adjust this the way I think is best,
Mm,
dismantle parts of it, and, you know, turn bars into ladders.
mm. I love that.
That was a huge difference, really, just
Yeah.
learning one step at a time that I have the ability to change how I feel about things,
Mm,
just that it's possible.
mm.
That was 100% vital.
Yeah. Yeah. Were there moments or like were there specific thoughts that you can identify that, changing them helped move you along on your journey?
I was trying to think about that, and there was something specific. It was, oh, this was a sort of a more outward facing thing. We were talking about my tendency towards isolation, and I was
Mhm.
basically saying, you know, uh, people kind of suck.
Mm,
I'm surrounding myself with my absolute favorite people, and I was very lucky during this time to have a core group that was really great. I don't remember if this overlaps with meeting you or not, actually, but certainly, if so, you would absolutely be in that category, obviously.
mm,
Um, but, you know, in terms of meeting other people and doing things that were less spending time with the people you already know and already feel comfortable around,
mhm,
I had a strong inclination towards people are bad. People are.
mm,
If I had to philosophize it, and she did make me, I said, like, people are basically like inherently selfish. I think that was one of the big things. A lot of this, a lot of my like outward focused angst, especially early on, was about like justice and like
mm,
you can trust people to be a certain way that is comfortable or whether they're going to hurt you in some
mm,
way. So that was the easy answer at the time was, well, people are selfish. And what I noticed working with her, without even necessarily addressing that directly, but just starting to slowly improve the depression and take on a more positive outlook of just myself without
Mm,
even really being prompted. I sort of realized as I was feeling less depressed, those feelings that felt very intellectual, very true,
mhm.
would change and morph in front of me. Uh,
Wow.
and without someone needing to tell me, like, hey, try addressing that again, I realized that what I started thinking was, well, no, that doesn't make sense. People are basically kind. Of course.
Mm,
I see this all the time. I'm no longer discounting the positive things that I'm seeing, and
mm,
allowing them to be as obvious as they are.
mhm.
And the negatives aren't made up, but the innate nature of humanity isn't necessarily going to be dictated by my worst moods, after
Mm,
all.
wow.
Um, and the explanation for why people do act badly, uh, then and now, I would say I have a pretty similar outlook, is that people are fenced in by systems that
Mm,
made sense when they were created, but now don't serve us
mm.
correctly.
Yeah.
And those two philosophies are only a few weeks, maybe months at most, of therapy apart from each other. But if
Wow.
you think of them as like guiding principles,
Mhm.
you have a very different life fighting for one of those principles over the other.
Mm,
Thinking that people are inherently selfish
mhm.
uh, makes you feel like you need to impose restrictions,
Mm,
have strong rules and strong enforcement of those rules
yeah.
because people have to have them in order to be good.
Mhm.
Whereas the opposite, assuming that people are essentially good but harmed by systems, is the exact opposite approach. It's not about enforcing rules and making everything so rigid. It's about making it looser and more comfortable, more
Mm,
fair,
mm,
and not being so determined to enact your own justice or whatever.
mm.
So
Wow.
I think it's so important to have your head on straight about that kind of thing, because it's
Yeah.
not just a matter of how you feel, it's about how you treat other people and how you think the world ought to be run, and
Mm,
who you support for president even. Um,
yeah.
if I thought that, if I, still, I guess, thought that people needed to be corralled and follow certain rules, I would vote very differently.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's
Mm,
part of my sort of uh, thoughtlessly altruistic side that is not considering the best way to actually do things necessarily, was pacified by that I was learning things that made me understand the world more clearly and more truly, without this fog of the depression distorting things. When I realized it was distorting how I saw the world, uh, I could tell a deep intellectual part of myself,
mhm,
that even if I didn't feel the care for myself that would be make it obvious that I should want to not be depressed, a lot of
mm,
times I didn't feel that.
mm, mhm,
Uh, but if I didn't, I was probably relying on sort of logic and reason instead, and being able to tell logic and reason that it wanted the same thing, me to be in a good mood and therefore seeing clearly and understanding the logical reality better,
mm.
really gave me sort of an extra me in my corner.
Wow.
Turn my sort of subconscious into the guy behind you, the coach behind you in the ring, rubbing your shoulders. You're like, you got to get back in there, kid. You got to hit hard. You got to take your hits. Got to take your lumps.
Yes. Is it too soon to ask? Because that, hearing you describe that, there's like this sort of part of you that kind of became this coach to you, makes me think about your DIY inner child healing that you've been doing.
Yes, let's jump forward to that.
Okay.
That was very monumental, and there were
Mm.
years between then. Decade, I
Mm.
guess, between then and when I started thinking about inner child work.
Yeah.
But ultimately, it's all kind of boring. I don't know. It was me. Anytime that I changed jobs and therefore insurances, I had to like find therapists and psychiatrists and medications all over again. So it was a bunch of starting and stopping things that were really helpful, and not getting the cumulative progress during that time that I would have liked,
Yeah.
looking back on it. Um, but after those initial first steps and getting medication both for ADHD and depression, those made a huge difference.
Yeah.
So that was yeah, I don't know. It's kind of a boring decade after that initial. I mean, I did plenty of cool things during that decade. I
Yeah.
was starting to be healthier and work with myself better, but
Yeah.
it was more incremental and like you might expect. Uh,
Mm.
yeah, medication being probably the big thing.
Mm. Yeah. I think that I appreciate you mentioning the thing about like every time you change jobs and every time you change insurance and like having to make these swaps that aren't ideal. Because I think that's also like a very relatable part of many folks' story, right? And just like it is hard and it does kind of I don't think it's always a bad thing. Sometimes, having to make a switch, like working with a new therapist or trying a new medication because your insurance no longer covers your old one, like it can lead to good things, but it can also just be a setback. And yeah, so I appreciate you mentioning that. Like sometimes factors that are wildly outside of our control determine the progress that we're able to make on our journey.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah.
To have it so blocked behind money, which is the thing that
Mhm.
I've always hated
Yeah.
thinking too much about. I want to
Yeah.
get past that to the interesting stuff in life.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, it's a bummer, especially you combine it with the anxiety about changing jobs and
Mhm.
learning new skills or being expected to perform at a different level than you had to before, and
Yeah.
now also that shift is coming without your established safety net because
Mhm.
of money matters. It's
Yeah.
all a very silly way to set that all up. Does not set you up for the best success you could possibly hope for.
So about a decade of that.
About a decade of that. So yeah, I have been in a much more stable job and financial situation for a while after
Mhm.
that period, which is
Mhm.
lovely.
Mm.
Obviously, the pandemic was chaos for me and everybody else. Right
Mhm.
after that, I got into the job that I have now, which is, like I said before, not aligned with my interests specifically, but it's a fine job. It's all right. It pays the bills and has good insurance.
We love it.
We love to see it. So I was able to come at further healing from a really stable place for the first time in a while.
Wow.
That made me very curious. I love having the energy and safety and freedom to be curious. When I realize one of the things that tips me off that I'm in an episode of depression that's a little higher than what I normally have is difficulty feeling or following up on curiosity.
Hmm.
Oh, I clearly there's something going on right now because I just wondered to myself how a helicopter stays in the air, and I didn't immediately open Wikipedia.
Hmm. Yeah.
Whatever, my I think my ideal state would just be constantly asking myself any question I can think of, like an
Mm.
annoying little 5-year-old, and then also jumping immediately into researching the
Mhm.
answer, whatever it is. So it's very noticeable when I don't have that.
Mm.
But yeah, I was in a good place on that, and a very good friend of mine. We sort of developed our friendship by talking through big like philosophical and sort of therapeutic issues. We're both very interested in people's minds, how they work, how that fits into like sociological thinking. Like, can we understand people well enough to build a better society for them?
Wow.
That kind of thing.
Yeah.
Big thinkers, big dreamers, both of us, and we
Mm.
hit it off in that arena, because it's not something you can jump straight into talking about with everybody.
Yeah.
Nor does every conversation necessarily support that, even if you did.
Yeah.
The inner child work
Mhm.
that you mentioned, that came out of an interesting place, kind of a surprising place, where me and this friend were talking about toxic masculinity.
Mm.
She's very interested in what the heck is going on in men's brains. And usually, whenever she had a question about that, I'm like, "So am I, actually." Talk about that. I can fill you in on surely not a typical, but at least a relatable male perspective.
Yeah.
So the thing that led to this path was, we are talking about like, why do people react so strongly when you do bring up one of these elements of toxic masculinity?
Mm.
When you say, you can be very, very specific and say, the expectation that boys play with army men and girls play with dolls creates
Mhm.
a problem, because uh, it doesn't. It insists that women be nurturing when that may
Mm.
not be the thing that they're best at, and it insists that boys internalize things through violence at a young age, and like, these are problems. These are specific problems.
Yeah.
And then, as I'm sure you know, you could say something like that to somebody, and they say, "Why do you hate men?"
Yeah.
When you're so specific and they're so general, I'm so curious. I get so curious. Why are you taking this so personally?
Mm. Yeah.
Uh, And we didn't have a good answer in that conversation. I said,
Mm.
I'm going to do some research, because I was in a curious mood. Like,
Yeah.
we had talked about like, oh, this idea that you are so inexorably bound to this element of your own personality, such as masculinity,
Mm. Mm.
is maybe like a Western concept that is not as true in the East. So it's like,
Mm.
okay, I'll look that up. Maybe philosophies or religions from other countries have ways of looking at this.
Mm.
So I started looking that up, and I found two main things. I found uh, how they talk about no self in Buddhism,
Mhm.
and in what was strikingly related, internal family systems.
Yeah.
Um, and so I started reading Buddhist monk texts, as well as uh, uh, No Bad Parts by Dr. Richard Schwartz at the
Yeah.
same time, and finding them uh, very similar,
Yeah.
identical at times.
Yeah.
There's a great little metaphor from Buddhism that I've seen in a few places now, that I thought was really useful to get this across. And it's a story about a monk that comes to see a king
Mm.
to talk philosophy, and the monk, the king asks who he is. The monk says, "Oh, people call me by this name, but there's actually no self that you would attribute that name to. There's no one thing that is me."
Mm.
And the king is like, "Okay, here we go already," uh, and challenges him to sort of explain this philosophy.
Mhm.
Um, and the monk says, "Okay, I see you have many chariots." Big chariot guy, this king. Um,
Huh.
and he points to a chariot and says, "What's the chariot? Is the axle the chariot? Is the seat the chariot? He's like, no, it's not any one of those things. No. It's like, oh, okay, it's all the parts together. So if I were to put all the parts that constitute a chariot in a big pile, is that a chariot? Well,
Mm.
no, that's not a chariot yet because they don't fit together. They don't do anything.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So when you put all the pieces together in the right way, is that a chariot? Well,
Mm.
kind of. If you're using it to travel, then yes. If you're not, it could be a chair with a bunch of extra stuff on it, you know? Uh, all that to say,
Oh.
the there's no one thing that's a chariot. It's made up of pieces, and
Mm.
only working together in a specific way are they actually that thing that you'd call a chariot.
Mm.
Take it a step further, you could replace any of those pieces with another, and it would still be a chariot.
Mm.
Um, one version of this that I read went on to talk about uh, that in human terms, like imagine that you had a different body. That's not
Mm.
that strange to think. You could be shorter. Everything would seem, higher up to you. You could be stronger. You could run better,
Mm.
faster and longer. You'd still be you, even though you're in a totally different body.
Mm.
But can you also imagine having a different mind? Can you imagine being smarter? Can you imagine being happier or sadder?
Mm.
Can you imagine having different experiences?
Mm.
You can, then that's also not you, is it? Because you just
Mm.
had a version of yourself in your mind that had a different mind and a different body. So what are you?
Oh.
And that was, I'm not sure if there's a Buddhist text that has a great answer to that question. I feel like it's more like a koan echoing in your mind to get you to
Yeah.
think in big ways. But I found the answer to the question in the writings of IFS,
Mm.
just to say you are many, many pieces.
Mm.
Many, many parts of yourself make up this whole, and they communicate with each other or not, which can be a problem.
Yeah.
And that you are this amalgamation, the same way that your body is made up of cells, and that your digestive system requires billions of little guys that aren't even humans. They're just little bacteria that you absolutely have to have. Like we're not a mind. We are
Yeah.
clusters of neurons that are all so complicated that some of them straight up act like people in their own way.
Yeah.
That at least is the theory of IFS, as I will very simplifyingly try to explain it. That
Yeah.
when I'm doing it, I'm imagining literally like clusters of neurons in my brain with
Mm.
like imagine a village with only a single road leading to a city. I'm imagining paving more modern roads and connecting them and throwing
Mm.
in a rapid train line as well so that they can communicate with each other better.
Yeah.
That's getting a little ahead of myself in terms of what it actually is and how I've done it.
Yeah.
So far, I have not worked with a therapist on this. I was between therapists for a long time, and my current therapist, I mentioned that I'm just starting to see her. She's been great so far, but we're really still getting to know each other. I've mentioned this work, but we haven't done any of it
Mhm.
under her like supervision.
Mm.
So essentially, what I did was read the books on it and read articles and assemble my own sort of practice to
Mhm.
try out. Really, not. And actually, I think this is really important. Not seeking any individual outcome, just being curious how it works and if it would work
Mm.
for me.
Mm.
I didn't come to it demanding a healing of a particular part or anything like that. Just curiosity. Just here's both an ancient philosophical text and a modern psychological handbook that say the same thing about how the brain works.
Mm.
There's something there.
Mm.
And I don't know if it is what they're saying it is, but I want to explore it.
Yeah.
Uh, so that's I always have to throw my skepticism a bone whenever I try anything, especially that feels kind of spiritual and big like that.
Yeah. Yeah.
uh,
That's real.
yeah.
Mm.
So the way I approached it, there was a several sort of scripts, loose scripts of how to interact with these parts,
Mhm.
largely separated into protectors and exiles, which is to say, protectors are parts of yourself that, and if you have better definitions for things, please jump in because I'm being very colloquial and summarizing here.
Yeah,
But
no, I think you're doing great.
oh, thank you.
Yeah.
Protectors being parts that intervene between you and experiences or feelings that have hurt you a lot in the past.
Yeah.
And exiles being the part that really feel that hurt
Mhm.
and are avoiding being triggered uh, by these outside forces. And trigger things being triggering or being triggered is a very common phrase in therapy these days. I almost think that it needs a different definition in IFS because it's not just a negative emotion being triggered, but like a whole sort of mini personality of yours
Yeah.
that, having been separated from the rest of you, probably at a young age, is a sort of simulacrum of a whole personality, but with
Mm.
far less experience dealing with the problems of life than the what constitutes the entirety of you.
Mhm.
Which is why things like that can feel so overwhelming. And I've felt, and I've heard other people say many times, like I thought I was past this. I thought I was more
Mm.
experienced than this. I thought I knew how to deal with this by now.
Yeah.
And of course, the skills that you've been building up, they feel like they should be there when you need them, but they're not everywhere. Not everywhere in your brain. And I think there are these exiles. I think are again trying to be as not spiritual as possible to make sure that I don't alienate myself or anyone else.
Mm.
Uh, I think of them a lot as clusters of neurons that
Mm.
uh, have their own internal consistency but aren't well connected to the rest of you.
Yeah.
So if they do get triggered, as in activated, uh, they those negative feelings like bouncing around in a vacuum probably, they have way less likelihood of bouncing to the one path back to the rest of your sort of brain
Yeah.
city, than they do going circular.
Yeah. Yeah. I love this explanation. I love all of the metaphors that you're using to kind of describe what this, because I do think it can be a really weird thing to describe. And
Yeah, definitely.
yeah, it's got this kind of like esoteric way of like the foundation of it is this like deep spiritual kind of like exploration that Buddhist monks were doing thousands of years ago, right? But then also, I think it's fairly intuitive when you talk about like, oh, this part of me wants this thing, or part of me is having this experience, and another part of me is having another experience. Um,
Yeah,
yeah,
it fits, it slots itself into natural language very easily,
yeah,
which is very nice about it.
yeah.
I also appreciated reading the book where there have been many books on it at this point, even by the same author, Dr. Richard Schwartz, who I believe is considered the sort of founder of this, more or less. I'm sure there's many similar disciplines like calculus. I'm sure many people more or less built it at the same time, but I found it very helpful to read that and to see his journey in how he wasn't trying to find evidence to fit a theory. He was building the theory to fit the evidence.
Mm, mhm,
He was using these skills for family therapy, like uh,
mhm,
addressing entire families based on the roles they're playing within each other and
mhm,
applying it to individual people and
mhm,
finding that it worked so well.
mhm,
So it helped me take it more seriously, I suppose,
mhm.
to know that this is a theory developed on evidence rather than a theory for which he went out to find some evidence, which is always much less inspiring, even if the idea sounds right to you. Well, maybe it's not, though.
Yeah.
Always got to feed the skepticism.
That's real.
And the other incredibly important thing from that book is right in the title, No Bad Parts.
Yeah.
It was incredibly important for me to have that framework going into it. To Again, I wasn't demanding a particular outcome. I was just curious to see if it would work. So I was happy to sort of set a guideline that I hadn't necessarily thought all the way through, or like thought was deeply true about the world. And that guideline in this case was, there are no bad parts. The parts of you that are causing trouble, that you're going to go out and speak to, you're looking to heal them, but also you're looking to bring them back to their valuable natural states where they have a job to do within yourself. And it's a double whammy of, they're doing this thing that causes you harm, but also they're not doing the thing that makes you better. They're not fulfilling the role that they need to be. So that would have been maybe a hard thing to convince myself was like objectively true before trying it, but I decided to just go into it with that idea in mind and see how that affected it.
Yeah. And that's where we're going to pause part 1 of this conversation. It'll pick up next week. Don't worry, you'll get to hear more about Logan's journey, including some specifics about how he dives in on inner child healing. And I'd like to introduce you to sponsorship, Ellen. Today's episode is being sponsored by me. I have a new offer that I am excited about, and I wanted to share it with you. The Inner Child Toolbox is a structured 6-session coaching container. It's for you if you're feeling stuck, especially if you've been on a healing journey or a therapy journey for a while. It's for you if you have reactions that don't make sense, or you feel like feel disproportionate to what has happened. If you feel like your feelings are too big or too strong. Or if you want to try inner child work before making an investment in an IFS therapist. Through 6 focused 1-hour meetings, we will map out your core wounds and how they connect to your inner child. We'll learn some metaphors for understanding inner child work. We'll practice strategies for communicating with, negotiating with, and soothing your inner child. We'll create a plan for how to continue your work on your own. I'll also be available for text or voice memo coaching Mondays through Thursdays to help you navigate inner child triggers in the moment. From the Inner Child Toolbox, you'll get a better understanding of your internal life and why you react to things the way you do. You'll get a toolkit of strategies and practices that will help you navigate triggering situations with compassion, calm, and clarity. And you'll get a plan for continuing this work so that you can feel confident in your continued growth. Because this is a brand new offer, I'm going to be offering a 50% discount for the first person who registers and a 25% discount to the second person who registers. And if you'd like to learn more, including all of that fun logistical info and to get on the calendar for the first step, you can head to my website at the link in the description. Hello, this is Outro Ellen. Thanks so much for listening today. If you're interested in hearing more healing stories, please subscribe on the platform where you're listening or join my newsletter, Find Your Fierce, on Substack. If you subscribe on Substack, you'll get an email every time I publish an episode, so you'll never miss one. The link to Substack is in the episode description. If you'd like to support the podcast, you can head over to Find Your Fierce and join as a monthly, annual, or founding subscriber. Paid subscribers make it possible for these stories to be shared far and wide, and you'll get access to bonus letters, episodes, and events that are just for subscribers. If you want to go above and beyond, please leave us a rating or a review on the platform where you're listening, or share this episode with a friend, frenemy, lover, family member, boss, colleague, or someone who needs it. I'm sending you the love and peace you need to be your best self today and every day. Audio hugs. Bye.